In today's interview, we've got the boys from Alice in Chains, Jerry Cantrell and William DuVall, talking with Eddie Trunk. For those of you who may not know, Alice in Chains lost their lead singer, Layne Staley, back in 2002, and their bass player, Mike Starr, back in 2011. So the band suffered two major blows there. But Alice in Chains really wanted to continue on with their legacy, and William DuVall was brought in as new lead singer. And in this interview, Jerry Cantrell talks about how William DuVall was never brought in to replace Layne Staley because, in Jerry Cantrell's words, Layne Staley is not replaceable, and the same goes for Mike Starr as well. He talks about how this is a new era for the band, with the new band members, and also goes into the fan backlash at the band and that famous "No Layne, no Chains" chant that the band has to put up with. And stick around for after the interview. We'll be talking some more Layne Staley and the legacy of Alice in Chains. But for now, let's go hit the interview with Alice in Chains members Jerry Cantrell and William DuVall. Cantrell began by saying, "We started off on this with a really pure intent. William and I have some history of touring and playing music together, even before Sean, Mike, and I had started to talk about reforming the band and playing a few shows. We wanted to leave the band in a better place than we left it, and we wanted to celebrate our friends, Layne and Mike."
You know, William was willing to take on that challenge, and we never looked at it as a part of somebody as replaceable, because Layne Staley is not replaceable, you know, and Mike Starr's not replaceable. Their period of time with us in the band on those records is indelible and completely unique. You know, when Mike joined the band and when William joined the band, those were new eras, and they were important additions and as equally important.
Cantrell continued, "We've just done things the same way we've always done them. Whatever feels right. It felt right at the time. We all talked to one another and said, 'Hey, do you want to take this on?'"
William had a huge challenge. Obviously, he was going to take a lot of you know, a little from some people up front, right? And you did, and you did,
still do,
and us too. You know, "No Layne, no Chains." You know, like that. You know, it's like, this is our band.
Is that the chant? I didn't know that was the chant.
Oh, that's one of them.
Cantrell continued, "This is our band. This is our music. And we're lucky enough to have been able to work through those challenges and move forward and to create a new chapter for this band. And we've created 3 of them. 3 new big chapters in this book. That is Alice in Chains."
And it's also something I'm really proud of, you know, that we soldiered on through all of that stuff and instead of just, you know, hanging it up. And it felt right to do that.
It was then put to William DuVall how he plays much more guitar than Layne did, and so that brought a different dynamic to the band. DuVall said, "I came into this as a fully realized musician, and I'm a guitar player first. Actually, that's all I ever wanted to be. Singing came much later for me, more as a young adult." DuVall then talked about how, on singing these Alice in Chains songs, in those times he wasn't playing guitar, how he had to become adept at freehanding with the microphone.
I had to figure out immediately how to freehand a mic in front of a lot of people and kind of transform myself. But the guitar always came first, and so I think that is the major difference, is that, you know, coming in, it adds a whole other dimension to this group. And it allows us to do things with new music that couldn't have been done before, and it allows us to interpret older material in a way that it could never have been done before.
So very interesting there from DuVall. With the fact that he plays more guitar than Layne did, being primarily a guitar player, it adds a different dimension to playing the old classic Alice in Chains songs. So DuVall and Staley really are in complete contrast there. Layne, the pure singer who played a bit of guitar, and DuVall, the guitar player who also sings.
Layne was a pure singer that kind of learned how to play guitar.
Right.
I remember when we were on like Lollapalooza, him hanging out with like Morello and stuff, and she teaching him a few chords, and he wrote a couple of the greatest guitar riffs we ever did.
Yeah.
Angry Chair, Hate to Feel, Head Creeps.
So, should have Alice in Chains continued on after they lost Layne Staley? Well, I say yeah. I think it's a great idea. The cool dynamic and the cool thing about Alice in Chains they have that not all bands have. In fact, very few bands have. They kind of had like two frontmen. Yeah, Layne Staley was the main frontman, but Jerry Cantrell was on an equal par with Layne Staley. Both of those guys were like dead equal in what they did. They did the same amount of work, carried the same load. They really did. So Chains were kind of fortunate in that way. So Cantrell does a lot of vocals for the band, obviously. So he can continue on doing that and playing guitar. So it wasn't the same as like Nirvana, where if they lose Kurt Cobain, they lose like everything. The songwriter, the vocalist, the guitarist. Like there's no way they could have kept Nirvana going, right? But at least with Alice in Chains, you still had a major cog, a major component, Jerry Cantrell, who writes the songs, sings the songs. So you still got a big chunk of Alice in Chains left even after Layne Staley did pass away. So there's no reason why they can't continue on. I think the no Layne, no Chains comment, I think that's a bit harsh. However, I do get that. I do get fans being that way, and that is completely understandable. I mean, if there's no Layne Staley and Alice in Chains, it's just not Alice in Chains. I get that. However, Jerry Cantrell saying there how it is a new era for the band. It isn't really the same band as before. It's like a new era. Parts of the band go on from what they did before. A lot of the same elements, just a new era, if you can look at it that way. And I guess that's what Jerry Cantrell was trying to explain there. But you can't really fault William DuVall. I mean, he's been with the band from around 2006, so he's clearly got the dedication. He has the talent as a musician that is obviously there. I mean, the new guy in a band like that is obviously on a hiding to nothing, right? He's obviously going to take a lot of crap. It's a real hard position to stand in, so he's got a lot of guts to do that. You got to give him credit for that straight up, especially in such an iconic band as Alice in Chains are. And the guy's good. He sings good. You hear him on Man in the Box and Nutshell and all their big hits and all the new stuff they're doing. He sounds great. And like Jerry Cantrell just said, we're not trying to replace Layne Staley. You cannot replace him. He's irreplaceable. So I think it's cool, you know. I think it's admirable that the band is going on. Yeah, it isn't quite the same band that did all of Alice in Chains' big hit albums, Jar of Flies and Dirt and stuff like that. But as I say, with Jerry Cantrell still being there, you still have a big chunk, a huge cog of Alice in Chains right there. Not to forget drummer Sean Kinney as well. He's still there. And of course, Jerry Cantrell and Sean Kinney are actually the original founding members of Alice in Chains. And they want to continue playing music. They want to continue playing Alice in Chains music and making Alice in Chains records. And the fans out there still want to see them play live. They still want to hear those songs live. Now, if you lost Layne Staley and Jerry Cantrell, okay, you couldn't reform Alice in Chains. It wouldn't work. But I think it's cool that these guys are continuing on. As I say, it's admirable, really. They didn't just give up. They kept going. In some bands, you can't do that, you know. You lose an integral part of the band, say a Kurt Cobain or Chris Cornell or John Bon Jovi from his band. If you lose guys like that, your band just can't continue on. That's pretty clear. Now, even though Layne Staley was an integral part of Alice in Chains, we all know that. As I mentioned before, the cool dynamic that you had with Chains is that you had kind of two front men, Jerry Cantrell and Layne Staley. So with Jerry still there, in my opinion, the band can still go on. One of the main singers and songwriters of the band. So you got a good chunk of the old there, a good chunk of the new, and it mixes together. Some fans don't like it. I fully understand that. And for them, this is not Alice in Chains at all. I get that. But for the fans who want to get on board and say, well, it's a new era, I think it's all good. And the other thing to all that, too, is the band is still putting out good music. The new stuff that Alice in Chains is doing with William DuVall, it's good. It sounds good. It rocks hard. It's good quality music. So that's the other thing. The band just didn't turn to absolute crap. No, they're still putting out real good material. As always, guys, thanks heaps for tuning in, and we will catch you on the next video.